Okay. Everybody is seated. Okay, I think we can start. Thank you for being here in such a large number. That's really fantastic. Your Excellency Secretary General of the United Nations and Mrs. Ban Ki-moon, Bishop Emeritus Taban Paris de Kenyi, distinguished members of the diplomatic corps and the international community in Geneva, ladies and gentlemen. As chairman of the board of the Sergio Vieira de Mello Foundation, and on behalf of Professor Philippe Burin, director of the Graduate Institute for International and Development Studies, who is a partner with us in organizing this event, it is my pleasure to welcome you all here this evening. This year, it will be 10 years since the tragic attack on the UN in Baghdad that took the lives of 22 UN colleagues and humanitarian workers, among whom was Sergio Vieira de Mello. His family and friends created a foundation in his name to promote the important values which governed his life and to continue his own unfinished mission. Sergio's passionate goal was to bring about dialogue and reconciliation between parties in conflict and to encourage others to do likewise. It is therefore particularly befitting that this year's Sergio Vieira de Mello Award be conferred upon Bishop Taban Paris de Kenyi, who has followed a similar path. A short award-giving ceremony will take place immediately following the Secretary General's lecture. It is truly an honor to have today with us the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, who has accepted to deliver this year's annual Sergio Vieira de Mello Memorial Lecture. The Secretary General needs no introduction, and it should be highlighted that he himself, amidst so many other responsibilities, has tirelessly been seeking to bring an end to international conflicts and to promote reconciliation. Following his lecture, we will have the opportunity to ask a few questions on issues raised by our distinguished speaker. Mr. Secretary General, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Anne Wilhelm Bijleveld, Chairman of the Board of the Sergio Vieira de Mello Foundation, Mrs. Annie Vieira de Mello, Vice Chair of the Board, Bishop Paris Taban, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your warm welcome. It's a profound honor for me to join you and to join the list of distinguished global citizens invited to deliver in this Sergio Vieira de Mello lecture series. I'm also proud to add my congratulations to Bishop Taban, tonight's award winner, for his work to promote interfaith and interethnic understanding in Sudan. And thank you very much for your commitment and leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, personally, I never met the Sergio Vieira de Mello. Yet, like countless others, I felt I knew him and remain inspired by him each and every day. During my years as a Korean Foreign Ministry official, I recall hearing high praise for a diplomat who was dashing in every sense of the word, elegant and everywhere. It seemed wherever there was a crisis, there was a Sergio. From Africa's Great Lakes region to Kosovo to Timor-Leste. And I'm just now recognizing distinguished President Ramos Horta of Timor-Leste. It's a great pleasure to see you, Mr. President. I know he has been working very closely with Sergio, and he received the Nobel Peace Prize. I thought that you should have received together with Sergio had he lived. By the time when I was serving as a chef de cabinet to the President of the General Assembly in 2001 and 2002, I heard many people were talking about Sergio Vieira de Mello. His name was on the lips of everybody at that time. I was wondering, who is Sergio Vieira de Mello? He must be a very distinguished person. Now, later, I realized that he was one of the star diplomat of the United Nations. He was known throughout the system as a humanitarian coordinator, special representative, transitional administrator, and he was known by one name only, for there was only one Sergio. Sergio was an ideal person and a practitioner. He did not simply speak about something to do. He did themselves. Such was his power to motivate people that some of the UN's best and the brightest followed him again and again. They believed in him and his ideas. Along with the rest of the world, I mourned on that dark day a decade ago when the grim news from the Canal Hotel brought an end to so much we hold dear. 22 distinguished colleagues cherished. They were all UN colleagues and partners, targeted in the most horrendous way. Our UN family had known violence before, but rarely with such devastating impact. Tragically, such attacks have accelerated since, from Algiers to Abuja, from Kabul to Islamabad, and elsewhere. Personally, when I was visiting Baghdad, first year, 2007, I was having a press conference with Prime Minister Maliki. I myself was attacked by rocket, 4 rocket attacks. Fell just 90 meters away. I had to hide behind this podium. That was really closest for me to see, to feel myself such a threat. That came to Sergio. The anniversary of the Baghdad bombing, August 19th, is now World Humanitarian Day, a fitting occasion on which we all remember, reflect, and recommit. Tonight, I renew my tribute to the Vieira de Mello family and the families and loved ones of all who perished. I also express my profound admiration for the UN staff and partners who survived the blast and returned to work with their lives changed forever, but with their commitment to the organization's values and values intact and even reinforced. As Sergio and the fallen colleagues proved in their 2 short lifetimes, and as UN staff and our partners show today on the front lines of war and disaster, the United Nations is dedicated to fulfilling its humanitarian imperative. They are following through on what I believe was the lasting message of Sergio Vieira de Mello. You can turn despair around, but never give up. That is the spirit I carry with me tonight. I will speak about three sets of challenges. The headline crisis, which we see every day on the newspapers and TVs, the forgotten crisis, and the silent crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin with the situation in Syria. For 2 years now, we have seen suppression of people's aspiration for change, the flight of ever greater numbers of people from their homes, and the daily escalating of killing, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. We will soon be entering third year in just 2 weeks. I visit Syrian refugee camps in Jordan and Turkey. I saw so many children and teenagers whose lives have been uprooted and whose dreams, like the communities they left behind, lie in pieces. The United Nations and our humanitarian partners are doing all we can to provide assistance. But in Syria and anywhere else, we must never use humanitarianism to avoid the tougher political choices. I continue to urge the Syrian parties to find their way to the negotiating table. The horrors of the last month and years prove beyond a doubt. The military solution in Syria is leading to the dissolution of Syria. As one Syrian student recently said, I quote, "My country is being destroyed, and the world is watching it like a film." This is quite sad. I'm personally pained to think how many more people will have to be killed every day as we continue days and months like this way. We cannot change, unfortunately, the channel and wish it away. Yet what atrocity must occur to finally stir the world to act? Those with the political power to change things must answer to every mother and every girl in Syria. Inaction in the councils of peace, Security Council, looks like indifference in the cauldron of war. The Security Council must no longer stand as a silent witness to the slaughter. At long last, it must come together and establish the parameters for the democratic transition that might be the last best hope for saving Syria. The conflict will end only when all sides are assured that there is a peaceful way toward the common future for all. There can be no room in the future for sectarianism or discrimination in Syria. All communities must be assured that their rights will be respected and protected. Civilians are also bearing the brunt of the crisis in Mali. The Mali and the wider Sahel region have become an epicenter of transnational weapons and drug trafficking, destructive extremism, and chronic drought. The economy of criminality is undermining governance in one of the world's most impoverished regions. People are despairing because they see no way out of their subsistence. The international community has responded to the government of Mali's call and reversed gains made by extremists. As military enforcement action eventually gives way to peacekeeping, our focus must also be on the political steps needed to resolve what is ultimately a political emergency. Let me now go to Democratic Republic of the Congo, where leaders are taking much needed new approach to break repeated cycles of violence. I was just in Addis Ababa last Sunday, just a few days ago, for the signing of a framework to address root causes of the situation in DRC. This framework agreement on peace, cooperation, and security in DRC and in the region is the first one in 20 years and quite innovative one. The DRC is committed to do their own work, including security sector reform, and that all neighboring countries in the region. 11, the leaders all came, they signed and committed. I signed the agreement as one of the guarantors of this agreement. The United Nations. Just, I understand. Let me continue. If you have, yes, I can understand. Please, let us. Okay, let me see. Please keep silent. I cannot go like this way. Please.
S'il vous plaît, un peu de respect.
Please calm down yourself. Please, this is not the way.
S'il vous plaît, un peu de respect. Le secrétaire général continue son discours.
Okay, let them continue, but because I know they have a lot of frustration because this situation has been there for maybe 4 or 5 decades. That's the place where one of my distinguished predecessors, UN Secretary General Dag Hammarskjöld, was killed in the course of his peace missions. We should really understand the frustrations and concern and anger. I'm not angry by what they have been saying. That is why I went there myself. That is why during last many months I have been working very closely with the leaders in the region. It's not the matter of DRC. Of course, that's primarily President Kabila and his government and his people. It's not a matter of neighboring countries like Rwanda, Uganda, but there are at least 8, 9 countries neighboring this DRC. They all have to help. And African Union leaders, they have to help. That's why I have spoken at least 11 leaders, including South Africa, even though they are not the neighboring countries. And the President Kwebuza of Mozambique, who is acting as chairman of the Southern African Development Community, what is known as SADC. And these members of International Conference on Great Lake Region. So all the countries in the Great Lake region, Southern Community, and African Union, they should be commonly responsible. They should help. That is why UN is going to work as a guarantor of this peace agreement. Signing peace agreement is one thing, and implementing this peace is another. You heard all these people were shouting because they are extremely angry and frustrated. So we have to have compassion and sympathy for those people of DRC. And United Nations, African Union, SADC, and the Great Lake Region Conference will work as 4 guarantors of this peace agreement, which was signed by 11 heads of state. Then there will be, when I say innovative approach, means that we will have at least twice a review session, review meetings, once in African Union, once in United Nations in January and in September. And I will personally convene these review meetings among the leaders, whether these commitments and agreement is now being implemented. The recent clashes which we have seen, unfortunately, a few days ago and recently, is a clear sign that still peace and stability and security is very fragile there. So I really hope all the leaders should be committed. We also need international support, European Union and Americans and all other developed worlds, so that we would be able to, they would be able to have a sort of some hope, livelihoods, what they should do, with what they can live there and make their society. Let me now move to another area, the Middle East peace process. I have been urging the leaders in the region that this year, 2013, should be a very crucial year. We have a very limited window of opportunity to revive the peace process. Before this window closes, then leaders in the region, as well as key countries' leaders, should work together. We have to help the peoples in Palestine and Israel so that they can live side by side in peace and security. That is what we have agreed, two-state solution, two-state vision. Unfortunately, this Middle East peace process has been stalled, and there has been no momentum. There has been continuing settlement by Israelis, and dialogue has been stalled. And recently, I have been speaking to American and European, Israeli, and Palestine leaders all the times. Let us re-energize this Middle East peace process. Let us have some time frame whereby we can have some momentum. And let us give some reasonably good package of measures on the ground to the people on West Bank and Gaza, because they are extremely frustrated, like Congolese people. We will do our best, and I'm looking forward to a very successful visit of President Obama to the region this month. And I sincerely hope that this will really be an occasion to generate this, rekindle this momentum. Ladies and gentlemen, there are many other areas. Now, Central African Republic is potentially rich country, but its people have been kept poor. One of the poorest countries in the world, through a mix of poverty and poor governance. As a result of the recent hostilities, more than 660,000 people are in need, and more children are being forced into fighting. Last December, the United Nations has appealed $129 million. Today, not a penny, not a single dollar has been pledged. So is it the right things for international community to do? Is it right that we just turn our eyes when people are just being killed and being hungry all the times? The response for Sudan is little better. We have been struggling for 8 months to gain access to South Kordofan and Blue Nile states. We know from the condition of the thousands who have fled that the situation is desperate. People are eating roots and leaves to survive. We and our partners are standing by with assistance, yet access is denied, another sign of worrying erosion in commitment to basic humanitarian principles. Ladies and gentlemen, a third kind of crisis is silent crisis. Crisis now is there, but nobody pays attention. There is always simmering anger and frustration, which may erupt into crisis anytime. These are silent emergencies where the tragedies unfold quietly and gradually behind the closed doors. Nearly 1.5 billion children will die this year from easily preventable diseases. Every 90 seconds, a woman dies in the world. Every 90 seconds from a preventable disease or childbirth or complications in the pregnancies. And there is a lot of problems coming from not the safe drinking water, because they don't have any access to safe drinking water. 1.4 billion people do not have access to this water, and 1.2 billion people do not have electricity, energy. They are living in complete darkness, complete darkness. Every day, thousands of children die from hunger-related causes, amidst a hunger crisis greater than any we have ever seen in 50 years. All of this is happening in 21st century. It's not the story of a 1918 or Middle East, mid-19th century or 18th century story. 21st century where people should be able to live in a better world. At least 1 billion people will go to bed hungry with empty stomach today and tomorrow, every day. As the late Stefan Hessel might have said, where is the outrage about poverty, about inequality, about social injustice? Hessel, who participated in the drafting of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, died Tuesday, a French resistance hero and a UN hero. He knew that budget austerity is no excuse for inaction. We all know that the cost of responding to crisis is far higher than the investment to prevent it. It is almost 8 times more expensive to feed a child in a therapeutic feeding program than it is to prevent that child from falling into such a malnourished state. That is why I have placed so much importance on sustainable development. I am pressing ahead with the partnership initiatives to achieve adequate nutrition, an end to hunger, and better health for every woman and every child. I'm also pushing for a legally binding agreement on climate change. This is never silent crisis. This is a fast approaching, much, much faster than you may expect. A lot of people are now talking about climate change, but they do not know how fast it is approaching to you, to us. We have seen these days extraordinarily strange weather patterns, massive damages. There's no exceptions. Like the richest, best prepared country like the United States was helplessly, defenselessly inundated last year. And New York, Manhattan, they lived, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, they lived without electricity many, many days, maybe 2-3 weeks. United Nations was also flooded. United Nations, this building, was flooded. So you see all this extreme weather pattern. This is coming now. This is what I say, silent crisis. If we do not address this climate change or hunger, poverty, then this will really affect the whole international world. The shameful pandemic of violence against women and girls is another silent crisis. It permeates our world, but too often people simply do not want to talk about it. Yet talk we must. We must talk about the stigma that keeps women from work and school, about the psychological challenges faced by children born as a result of sexual violence, about rape used as a weapon of war. As one woman said, "They took away my life without killing me." We must talk too about the men and boys who are raped as a deliberate tactic of conflict. Sexual violence is an issue of human rights and human dignity. It is a health issue, a social issue, and a question of development. A country will simply not advance if its women cannot live free from harassment and fear. Next week in New York, at the Commission on the Status of Women, the world will gather for the largest ever UN Assembly to end violence against women and girls. Just a couple of weeks ago, 1 billion women stood up against this sexual violence against women around the world. As part of UN Women's Commit initiative, governments are coming to this historic session with the concrete plans to improve access to justice, ratify international conventions, strengthen protection, tightening punishment, and enhance prevention and education. We must continue. The silence must stop. Ladies and gentlemen, in the face of these crises, 3 crises, the humanitarian landscape continues to change. On the one hand, in this new age of accountability, international humanitarian law and criminal justice are extending their reach. On the other, there is still too much brutality, too much impunity. On the one side, we see armed groups making up for military weakness by attacking civilians or using them as shields, flagrant violation of international law. On the other, we see strong armies frustrated by enemies that are often difficult to identify, and then too often responding in ways that violate the principle of distinction and proportionality, core tenets of international law. New technologies are in use. New humanitarian actors have joined the fray, including the military and the private sector. They have brought vital new capacities for delivering aid more safely. But traditional humanitarians have valid concerns that their own access, security, impartiality may be undermined if they are perceived as aligned to the political or commercial objectives of such missions. We must work through these emerging dilemmas. However difficult they may be, they at least reflect our shared devotion to serve people and fulfill our humanitarian imperative. Whether headline crisis, forgotten crisis, or silent crisis, there should be no more indifference, no more neglect, or early warning signs, no more excuses that problems are too big, too costly, too difficult. One might be excused for despairing over the long list of global challenges, yet I know we have it within us to solve each and every one. Crisis can end. From time to time, we might forget, but then we get reminded. 6 months ago, I traveled to Timor-Leste. I met the President Ramos Horta there. While I was there, many people recalled to me their hardships, their triumphs, and the support the United Nations provided during the darkest days. But above all, the country was looking ahead with a sense of optimism. Our United Nations peacekeeping operations was packing up and going home. This is one of the successful cases that we are closing down. We have closed down legally the peacekeeping operations. And it's all in the hands of Timor-Leste, the police and their people. We had completed our long mission, and I saw hope everywhere. Not long ago, many would have dismissed such an achievement as impossible. Impossible in Timor-Leste, but not Sergio Vieira de Mello. As transitional administrator there, he understood the power of national ownership. He worked closely with the country's leaders to support their aspirations. He believed in the people, and they believed in Sergio. That's the way Timor-Leste people have been able to have these successful stories. Let his example and that all of our fallen colleagues of the United Nations continue to inspire us to believe, push us to act, and remind us that the power to transform our world is in our hands if we have the courage to use our hands. And I thank you very much for your attention, and I really count on your strong commitment to work with the United Nations for a better future, better world, where everyone, regardless of where you are coming from, whatever background you may be having, can live in peace, in harmony, in dignity, and security, and prosperity. And I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General, for your inspiring lecture and for your insightful remarks. The interruption you faced during your lecture was, I think, a clear example of the complexity of the political problems and the frustration that people are faced with. We saw that here during your lecture. You've captivated your audience, and I'm sure there will be some interesting questions from the floor. We will take 3 questions at a time. As we have little time, please keep them brief and to the point. Remembering how Sergio, an academic, was keen to enter into dialogue with students. Oh, pardon.
Well, you can use it.
Okay, well, I'll start over again. Thank you, Mr. Secretary General, for your inspiring lecture and for your insightful remarks. You've captivated your audience, and I'm sure there will be some interesting questions from the floor. We will take 3 questions at a time. As we have little time, please keep them brief and to the point. Remembering how Sergio, an academic, was keen to enter into dialogue with students, I would particularly welcome questions from the younger generation. Who would like to ask the first question? Yes, please.
Dear Excellency, in your opinion, what have been the most effective UN tools to prevent and halt genocide, and which tools were less effective?
Shall I take 2 more?
Yeah.
Yes, more questions? Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Christine Lee, and I am a student currently at Duke University. I wanted to learn more about the role that the United Nations is playing in the global health crisis, and talking about your...
excuse me.
Sorry.
Let me have this coming from French. Why don't you just... is it English?
English.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead? Repeat.
Please.
In terms of the international health regulations that were established in 2005, I was wondering if the United Nations was making any progress at creating a dialogue for countries to create a framework of their own to help with sustainable development of healthcare systems in their own countries, or whether it was just an ongoing process where just a framework has been established and not an actual plan of action has been delivered for these countries who are trying to create health care development systems.
Thank you.
And will you repeat the first question?
Can you repeat your first question, please? Can you repeat the first
All right,
question?
I'll try it again. Well, I'm Johan from Webster University, Geneva. I had a question about genocide prevention. In your experience, what have been the most effective UN tools to prevent and halt genocide, and which ones were less effective?
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Shall I take one
Third,
more?
yeah, third question.
Okay, one more question. Yes, please.
Yes, hello. My name is Mark Harry. I work for RED. We work with vulnerable young people across the world, and as such, my question would be, well, what could the UN do to include younger generations, young people, within the negotiation process, the reconstruction process, or the crisis of tomorrow, such as climate change, which are directly of concern to us? Thank you.
This doesn't count. I'll answer for these 3 questions. The first question is on genocide convention. The international community, the world leaders in 2005, when they were meeting for World Summit, they adopted a very important principle, what we now are calling it responsibility to protect. At that time, they discussed how to prevent this genocide, which we have unfortunately, tragically experienced in Rwanda and also Srebrenica. It happened once in Africa. It happened in the European continent, where international community was just watching. Millions of people were being murdered. Then after that, the international community has established International Criminal Court. For those perpetrators who have been violating international human rights law, humanitarian law, and who are committing the genocide, war crimes, ethnic cleansings, and international criminal crimes against humanity. All those 4 crimes are being dealt with by International Criminal Court. And I have established an office, a special advisor to prevent the genocide, and also a special advisor to work on this responsibility to protect. This is a quite unprecedented one. Since I became Secretary General, I appointed a special advisor on that. Mr. Dieng, who is a Senegalese, who worked in the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, ICTR. The international community has been establishing many such tribunals. ICTY, International Criminal Tribunal for former Yugoslavia, is the one thing. ICTR, International Special Tribunal for Sierra Leone. We have also established extraordinary chamber of court in Cambodia. We have established the International Tribunal for Lebanon. Those are the efforts of international community to ensure that whoever and whenever the crime is committed, then these people will have to be brought to justice. And we are seeing great difference from before, that all those potential perpetrators, particularly when they are leaders of a country, then they must be very seriously think twice and again before they commit such a crimes. Some of the heads of state are now indicted officially, like President Bashir of Sudan. He is indicted. He's not able to travel freely. The international community, whenever he is available to be arrested, they will be sent. The former president of Gbagbo of Cote d'Ivoire, he's now in The Hague, being on the trial by International Criminal Court, ICC. So there is no way, no place for any perpetrators to hide. There will be a clear and strong accountability process. The second, the world leaders in 2005 and 2000, they have made a very important commitment, a very important blueprint for the sustainable development. What is we now say Millennium Development Goals. The target date is 2015, reducing the number of abject poverty by half, providing primary education and ensuring gender equality, providing necessary health services, malaria, tuberculosis. All these are some important commitments. We are accelerating our work to meet this target. But I don't think all of these goals will be met by 2015, frankly speaking. We have only 1,000 days left. We have to address all these issues, including the climate change. Then we will have to have an agreement, a legally binding agreement on climate change by 2015, just 1,000 days ahead. Then what will happen after this? We are now seriously working for a post-2015 development agenda that we call sustainable development. Last year in Rio de Janeiro, the world leaders have identified at least 26 areas where and with this, we can make this world sustainable. Sustainable means you have to be sustainable in economically, socially, and environmentally. Of course, we are working very hard to have politically sustainable world. So we are working very hard. I have established a high-level panel composed of world leaders and experts who will bring this blueprint visions where by 2015 we will have all this sustainable agenda. Third question, this is a very important one. The world at this time is very young. Those people, the population, number of population under the age of 28 is more than half of the world population. That means the world is very young now. Now how we can give to these young men and women a hope and place to work, decent work, and socio-economic and political opportunity. That's a huge challenge for us, for the leaders of current world. The young people have been really shaping the world now already. You have seen in Arab world started by young people and women who came to the street and demanding their rightful choices and opportunities. That is why UN is focusing very much on youth. About 2 weeks ago, I have appointed for the first time the special envoy on youth. I appointed 29-year-old Jordanian whose name is Ahmad Al-Hindawi. He's a very young man, but with a great vision and very dynamic. I hope that he will bring with us some good vision so that we can work out good programs and visions for young people. Now then, these young people should also be able to participate in shaping the world, which will be their world, not mine and not yours here. Then I am asking the world leaders to include young people in United Nations delegations. It's not only ministers or prime ministers or directors. So why don't you include young people as your official delegation so that they will learn? This is one thing. We are inviting many interns, even though it's just a brief period, so that they learn and see more about what United Nations is doing, how they can contribute to the process of shaping a better world for them. This will be a continuing commitment of the United Nations. Thank you very much.
Would you like to take some more? Okay, the Secretary General is willing to take 2 more questions. Yes.
Hi, my name is Michael. I just had a quick question as to the uses of drones by the United States recently. It seems to me that any weapon that kills 12 civilians for every 1 military target has no justification, not only domestically but internationally. My question to you, sir, is why has the United Nations done nothing so far as to address this issue? And if they do in the future, what, in your eyes, could they do? Thank you.
One more. Yes.
Hello, my name's Kieran. I'm an English teacher. There were 2 things that were brilliant about your talk. One was your question, where's the outrage? And the second was the injection from our Congolese comrades. I want to ask you to think critically about the role that the UN plays to weaken, ignore and silence outrage, and to think, does the UN spend too much time thinking on a sort of international level, speaking with world leaders and so on? And what could the UN do to, rather than take outrage out of the hands of civil society in the same way that the voices were taken out of this room this afternoon? And what could the UN do to really empower civil society? Because as an English teacher, I certainly get very frustrated when I try and engage with young people and getting them to feel outraged, and it's a difficult world.
Thank you. Thank you again. The questions are very diverse. I'm glad that you are very much interested in world affairs. It's very important that each and everyone really pays attention and interest in what and how this world is going, and where we are going. Drone, they may be a little bit unfamiliar to many people, but you have only seen some reports that some victims and caused by drones. When it comes to drone, particularly if drones are armed, then it should be regulated and controlled by international law and international human rights law and international humanitarian laws. That's very clear position of the United Nations. The drones may be a new technology, but these international laws have been there since long to regulate all these kind of things. When they are particularly armed and targeting the civilians, then there is no certainty, clarity, whether they are targeting recognized targets like combatants or civilians. Sometimes they hit civilians where they were having wedding ceremonies. Very tragic things happen. Therefore, I'm urging that all this should be controlled and regulated strictly by international laws. And when these drones are in the hands of non-state actors, that creates much more problem. For example, armed groups, terrorists. It's not the government. Even when governments are operating these armed drones, they make a lot of mistakes and kill civilian population. That is why we are very much concerned. Therefore, United Nations is not, in fact, using the word drone per se. We use unmanned aerial vehicle, UAV. There was some controversy when United Nations was trying to purchase and deploy UAVs. The United Nations UAV will be unarmed. This is purely for the purpose of collecting information, gathering intelligence in DRC and in Sudan. You may, if I may explain like this way, the South Sudan itself is country 20% bigger than France. I'm sorry that I take France as a criteria. France is quite a big country. I think 550,000 square kilometers. It's 20% bigger than France. Do you know how many roads are there in huge, vast land? And do you know how much road, what's the length of paved roads, paved streets? It's less than 100 kilometers in such a huge country. There are no roads, first of all. There is no way for our peacekeepers can move while there are many armed groups and villagers who are attacking civilian populations for political reasons, or sometimes fighting over water, fighting over some resources. So there is no way for United Nations to know the movement of these people. In DRC is the second largest country in Africa. This is one of the maybe one of the, it ranks within 20 largest country in the world, a huge land with a lot of forest. There's no movability, accessibility. Then there's no way for us where these rebels are coming. Therefore, we really wanted to use these UAVs, unarmed, for collection of information. So these will be strictly controlled within the provisions of international laws. I can assure you that. The second question about all this civil society, empowering civil society, and what United Nations is really doing to prevent this silent crisis. That's a very good question. I have explained some of what I have been doing. For example, UN has taken many initiatives to save lives of women and girls, every woman and every child. This initiative was taken 2 years ago. It is getting a lot of support. Just to save at least one human life is too precious, too important, even a person. So let us try to save the lives of these women and girls and children who are dying needlessly from preventable diseases. If they are living in Geneva, if they are living in the United States or developed world, they will never die. The chances of a woman who will die during childbirth in Sweden, almost zero. In South Sudan, almost 5 or 10 times. And this is quite unacceptable, very sad situation. Therefore, we have dispersed, at least we used $10 billion last year. We are getting support from. We are strengthening the partnership on this nutrition issues, which is called scaling up nutrition. There are many young children who are dying before they can celebrate 5th birthday. So a lot of people are dying. A lot of people, children are dying from, again, preventable diseases, from malnutrition or just illness, from lack of water, safe drinking water. There are many things. When it comes to climate change, you should know that during the last 6 years, I have traveled all the places, wherever, whenever I was able to see for myself the impact of climate change. Just you please name any place where you have seen the impact of climate change. I wasn't there myself. Starting from Antarctica, poles, or Brazilian Amazon River basins, or Kilimanjaro mountains, Lake Chad. There are numerous places wherever. And Aral Sea, this is very sad and alarming. When just 30 years ago, there was a huge sea. This has become a sand field. When you go to Aral Sea, just by mismanaging of this water, the complete ocean has become the salt field. Salt field. It's quite, the world is changing and sickening, and almost very sick patient. That's why we are really doing our best to keep this planet Earth sustainable. We have only one sustainable, one planet Earth at this time. That is why I'm urging the world leaders to have climate change, legally binding climate change deal. The big countries and big emitters, they should do more before everybody's being killed silently, quietly. So in any way, we are doing a lot to empower civil society. Without help of civil society, United Nations, any government cannot do anything at this time. the civil society has become one of the three important pillars. That's first the government, business communities, and civil societies. Then any democratic, any prosperous society has a very strong, solid foundation of civil society. United Nations learned this lesson and worked very closely with the civil society. Because of time limit, I will stop here, and I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary General, for this stimulating and informative exchange. Now we will have a very brief award ceremony, so if you please be seated. Our foundation confers an award every 2 years. Its jury is composed of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, the High Commissioner for Refugees, the Director General of the United Nations Office in Geneva, and the ambassadors of France and Brazil to the United Nations in Geneva. The jury has selected Bishop Taban Paride Kenyi in recognition of his efforts to promote reconciliation and dialogue among tribes in conflict, making it possible for these tribes to live peacefully together in harmony in the Holy Trinity Peace Village, Kuron, South Sudan. Kuron is seen as an example of peaceful reconciliation, which will encourage other communities to follow a similar approach in other areas of conflict in South Sudan and beyond. Before I call upon Bishop Taban to come forward to receive his award from the Sergio's son, Laurent and Adrian, and to deliver his brief acceptance speech, I would like you to watch a short film about the Holy Trinity Peace Village Kuron in South Sudan.
The problem we have here is people are ignorant. A lot of people who are not yet, they are illiterate, they still live their traditional way. And of course, in traditional way, the question of revenge is always there. And that's what we want to get rid of. It means people have to accept each other and to forgive each other. And of course, get ready. Because we people, sometimes the proposals are going to graze up to inside Ethiopia side and up to Upper Nile. In coming back, they may bring cattle of others with them.
During the 21 years as the Bishop of Torit, he stayed in his diocese, even with the civil war going on. These were difficult times. Bishop Taban was sent to prison in Juba for over 1 year. He survived military attacks and several attempts on his life.
My vision is to make this place a place where the whole region in the southern Sudan, or even if they could come from the north, to learn how people can live peacefully. Because here we see a lot of tribalism, a lot of raiding, many of not accepting one another as people of one nation. So I learned this program from my youth.
The dream is becoming reality. In 2004, Bishop Taban was given permission from the Holy Father to retire from the Torit Diocese to realize his dream project. In this deserted land, Bishop Taban wants to start all over. Here he wants to build a peace village as an example for the rest of Sudan.
some children come from a bit, their homes are, they are hungry, some are going after the cattle to get some little milk when they are traveling. But now we introduce food. In 2 weeks, we got 150 in these two buildings. We are expecting, before the end of the year, we are expecting over 200. But we are already having a prefabric building coming for the school. Then there will be 3 classes. Our idea is to get a nursery school attached to primary school, and then we have an adult education, because you see some of them here are already big people among those ones. They don't know anything, so we cannot accept them in the nursery.
Already in 1994, Bishop Taban initiated a primary school for girls in Naos, not far away from the Kenyan border, and later a primary school for boys. Schools are central to realize the dream of a national state.
We started under the trees, the schools in Naruf, where a lot of displaced children were brought together. From now, the children have come from 24 different tribes. And there are, for example, 600 girls in the boarding school. We have more than 500 boys also in the boarding school from 24 different tribes. These children are living so peacefully.
Bishop Taban has coordinated the digging of over 152 wells. This hand-pump system provides water for 150,000 people. Local project leaders teach the tribal elders the importance of building fences around the well to stop the animals from polluting the water. Otherwise, the Guinea worm disease affects the whole tribe. This is the importance of clean water hygiene. The Holy Trinity Peace Village in Kuran. For Bishop Taban, a dream becomes reality.
Okay, thank you. The images you saw on the video are 7 years old. Since then, the village has expanded. There are many more classrooms, boarding facilities there are to house over 250 students, all coming from different tribes, including from across the border with Ethiopia, Kenya, and Uganda. A health clinic serving a population of over 52,000 people, a community police force, but most importantly, people in this vast area who used to call themselves enemies now call themselves friends. Your Excellency Bishop Taban and his assistant, could you please join me on the podium, as well as Sergio's sons, Laurent and Adrian, to receive the award.
Dear Excellency Bishop Taban, the Sergio Vieira de Mello Foundation is very proud to offer you this award for your continuous effort to promote peace and dialogue among South Sudan populations. Thank you very much and congratulations.
Your Excellency Bishop Taban, congratulations with your well-deserved award. And now I invite you to deliver your brief acceptance speech. A printed version of a longer acceptance speech will be available at the exit.
Your Excellency, Secretary General of the United Nations and Ms. Ban Ki-moon, Mr. Vieira de Mello, President of the Sergio Vieira de Mello Foundation, Mr. Anne Willem Well, Chairman of the Board of the Sergio Vieira de Mello Foundation, distinguished members of the diplomatic corps and the international community in Geneva, Mayor of our host city of Geneva, peace be with you. You are my friends. I have no enemy among human beings. All are my friends. Salam alaikum kullukum. I heard our friends from Congo, Kinshasa, where I was ordained bishop in 1980 by Pope John Paul II, wailing, Mbote. This is a special day for me and for my country, the Republic of South Sudan, the world's largest country, the Republic of South Sudan, the world's newest nation, ably represented by His Excellency Ambassador Riek Paul at the United Nations in Geneva. A few years ago, back when South Sudan and Sudan then still consumed by one of the longest and most virtuous civil wars in the history of mankind, in which South Sudan lost over 1.5 million of people. Of course, many times they say 2.5 million. It would have been unthinkable for me as the humble servant of God to stand on podium here and receive this prestigious award. and priceless honor. On behalf of my country, on behalf of the Intergovernmental Authority for Development, IGAD, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Sudan, South Sudan, Somalia, Djibouti, Kenya, and Uganda, and on behalf of all peace-loving people worldwide. For decades, the Sudan and now South Sudan have been known to the world for civil wars, for bloodshed, and massive displacement of population, of displaced people, and for refugees. Tonight, the world is welcoming South Sudan in a truly unique way as a champion of dialogue, reconciliation, and peacemaking. We will remain eternally indebted to the Sergio Vieira de Mello Foundation for making this happen. In this regard, I am hopeful the ongoing negotiations on the outstanding post-independence issues between the Democratic Republic of the Sudan and the Republic of South Sudan will lead to a peaceful resolution and a lasting agreement that will allow the two neighboring sovereign states to live side by side in peace and harmony. We have known the pains of war and now value the benefit of peace. In 1972, following the Addis Ababa Agreement, Sergio Vieira de Mello, then a young United Nations UNCR program officer in Juba, stood shoulder to shoulder with us as we receive the thousands of returnees from exile. He served the returnees with dedication and compassion, and they loved him dearly. It is hence indeed benefiting that a foundation dedicated to Sergio's memory and work should, on the 10th anniversary of his tragic death, honor a son of the now sovereign state of the Republic of South Sudan. In this regard, I bring to you the warm greetings of the people of South Sudan and its President, His Excellency Mr. Salva Kiir Mayardit. Here I want to add, for you to know that the blood of Martha is the seed of peace. Today, in a remote part of eastern Equatorial State of the Republic of South Sudan, we have a modest way proven that several pastoral tribes who were once bitter enemies now live together in peace and harmony in Holy Trinity Peace Village, Kuron, enjoying the dividends of peace and stability. People, as you see, who call themselves enemies, could not move even 1 kilometer away. Now they can move 200 kilometers and celebrate together. And these people who call themselves enemies, now they call themselves friends. These people, they never knew that they were human beings. They say, at last, we are human beings. This successful approach will serve as a model in reconciliation, and that will be applied in other parts of South Sudan, maybe even in Sudan, like now in Darfur, Blue Nile, and many other parts. Reconciliation that will be applied even in the border, cross borders, like now in Ethiopia with Koroma, in Kenya with Turkana, and in Uganda with Karmojong. That is beyond our borders, to give credence globally to the laudable principle of resolving conflict peacefully through dialogue. Sergio dedicated his life to the very end, pursuing this lofty, enduring goal. Holy Trinity Peace Village is an oasis of peace, like a star fallen into the wilderness, giving light for the people of South Sudan. It is most appropriate that the city of Geneva, which has been associated historically over the ages with the humanitarian concern for relieving suffering and saving lives, and the protection of civilians caught in conflict, should continue to be the platform for the World Humanitarian Day. The annual Sergio Vieira de Mello Memorial Lecture and the Sergio Vieira de Mello Award. The biggest challenge for all of us is, when will this helping hand turn into a stronger arm to prevent conflict? Mr. Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, you have tonight graced this event by your presence among us. It is an eloquent expression of your commitment to the recognition of the efforts, sacrifices, and significant contributions of thousands of humanitarian workers wide world in relieving suffering and saving lives, and especially now in South Sudan. You have been the key person for the independence of South Sudan. I met you. In October, in New York, just before the independence, and you made it possible. God bless you. It is also a benefiting tribute to many fallen heroes like Sergio Vieira de Mello, who paid the ultimate price in serving mankind and trying to make this a better world for us and the coming generations to live in. May the message go out forth from here to the rest of the world that the United Nations, under your able leadership, will achieve a new milestone in global peace, security, stability, and prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, though my name, Taban, in Arabic means tired, I wish to assure you all that I am not tired. I'm strong, active, and will continue to dedicate the rest of my life to advocate for and promoting dialogue as the key to the peaceful reconciliation of parties in conflict. I hope I don't make you tired. Finally, I am humbled and I feel greatly honored to be selected as the laureate to the 2013 Sergio Vieira de Mello Award and accept the award on behalf of my country, on behalf of IGAD countries, and on behalf of all peace-loving people worldwide, and on behalf of all those who pour their blood for the suffering people in Sudan and other countries like Sergio Vieira de Mello. Knowing fully well that it will encourage and inspire many other worthy men and women out there who are suffering day and night to reconcile parties, communities, and countries in conflict carry this effort to even greater heights. I encourage each one of you, do not be afraid of visiting South Sudan. It is a country of faith and hope. It is written, when God created the South Sudan, God laughed for joy. And I would also ask you now to laugh for joy. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you, Excellency, for this very nice acceptance speech. Please be seated now, and I would ask Annie Vieira de Mello to come forward to make some final remarks. Annie.
Monsieur le Secrétaire Général.
Mr. Secretary General, Mrs. Ban, Bishop Taban, ladies and gentlemen. Having heard all of these eloquent speakers, it is quite difficult to take the floor. But I really wanted to thank Mr. Ban Ki-moon for having agreed to give this lecture despite his extremely tight schedule, and thank him also for having drawn our attention to the various UN projects and operations that are underway, carried out by the UN. Now, the attack on the UN happened almost 10 years ago. Our relatives, our friends, our colleagues didn't think twice about coming to the rescue of populations and continued to do so, armed with no other weapon than the desire to protect the lives and the dignity of those populations. Perhaps for this reason, these colleagues, friends, have become favourite targets, and increasingly so, of people who would like to attack them. I would like to pay homage to all those who've lost their lives in these missions, and I'm moved by their memory. However, many legal instruments were ratified a long time ago, ratified by the majority of governments, to seek to resolve the conflict, the results of the conflicts or the consequences of the natural disasters. In 1948, we had the UN Charter. In 1948, the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. Still in 1948, the nations of the world adopted the Convention Against Genocide. We also have the 1949 Geneva Convention on the Protection of Victims of War, the 1951 Convention on the Protection of Refugees, etc., etc. And I will end the list there because it is too long, this list of legal instruments. But despite these legal instruments, populations continue to suffer. People among the local populations are working to achieve the same aim, namely to restore their own people's security and dignity, and they do so very often risking their own lives in the process. Mr. Ramos Horta, who surprised us this evening by joining us, by being in our midst, also paid the price. But today, Timor is an independent country. Bishop Taban is another such man, and I would like to congratulate him for the outstanding work he's been carrying out not only in South Sudan, but also in the neighbouring countries, as he seeks to bring about the reconciliation of tribes who've been in conflict for many, many years. Your efforts, sir, have been rewarded, and you are a worthy recipient of the Sergio Vieira de Mello Award. At the end of 1972, I was in Juba. At the time, Sergio had just been appointed to Sudan to organise the repatriation of hundreds of thousands of South Sudanese refugees who'd fled to the neighbouring countries. We've come such a long way since then. On the 9th of July 2011, the country was granted its independence, and a week later, the Republic of South Sudan became the 193rd member state of the United Nations Organization. Congratulations, and I wish your young country every success. As you leave the room, you'll find a document telling the life of Bishop Taban's life, if there are any left, because I think most of them have already been taken, but also his speech, the long version thereof. The video of the ceremony, as well as all the speeches given this evening, will be available on the website of the Foundation as of next week. And may I also invite you to follow the activities of the Foundation by registering to receive our newsletter. Thank you very, very much for having come here this evening. Thank you for faithfully attending our conferences, and have a very pleasant evening. Thank you.